Hey everybody, coming at you with another exciting video. Well, exciting, rambling, opinionated, and me throwing in my 2 cents. Now, everybody has done these videos on batoning wood, okay? Batoning wood. You're an idiot if you baton wood. Why would you not baton wood? You're not an idiot if you do. Why batoning's good, why it's bad, alright? Not really going to get into that because batoning wood is a useful method. And a lot of people claim it's just something that's created by YouTube. Ooh, YouTubers invented it. Well, the thing is, the subject's been beat to death on forums and on YouTube and everywhere. Okay, anywhere to do with social media and where people interact with each other. And I've always said that I'm going to stay out of the subject, alright? But I've seen one too many videos on it, and all the videos are the same, and they've got the same old, tired, lame excuses, like, as in, the cat's moving the camera. They've got the same old, lame excuses of where, like, they're like, it's for, if everything's wet and you want to get to the center of the wood where it's dry. Yes, that is true, but there's a million other reasons, and there's a million other uses, okay? It's not just for fire, it's also for shelter building. It's not just for wet situations, it's also an efficient way and a fast way of making fire. Now, I'm also going to explain a little bit more. I'm gonna talk a tiny bit about axes and splitting and machetes and the batoning, and then I'm going to talk about feather sticks and curls and dry grass as tinder and the differences, because to me it's all interrelated, and I haven't seen many other videos really explain why certain things work a certain way, and the main thing is they haven't explained the advantages of it, and that's what I'm planning on doing. And another thing too is the batoning is also good for shelter building, bed building, for actual wood crafting, okay? So, if I can get the cat to leave me alone. People that have asked, this cat is Hebert, and Hebert will never leave me alone, and he's always wanting to hug me. All right, Hebert, get down. So let's move on over there and let's start talking about cutting tools and splitting, and then we'll move on into batoning. What was around before batoning? Okay, splitting wood with an axe. Okay, so let's talk about this for a minute. Now, when you split wood with an axe, why would you split wood? Okay, that's the big question. Well, there's lots of different reasons. Most of the time, it's because it's too big to go into the fire, or if you're just getting a fire going, sharp edges catch fire, catch flame, take a flame better than just a round piece. So once you get one going, you don't have to do it anymore. You can just throw the pieces in. But now, the way this came about, all right, let's see this here. And I say I'm having trouble. That's cut crooked. Let me ease this camera down just a little bit. Now, these blocks here, as far as I'm concerned, these are the worst enemy of reality for a lot of these batoning videos, because stuff like this is not in nature. This is what you will see in nature. Alright, this is the kind of stuff that you're going to see at a home camp. People are going to set things up, and then they're going to come down with an axe, and then they're going to split it. Alright, or some people, they will hold it, and I've mentioned this a million times. You don't ever want to come down with an axe and split like this, ever, because if you miss and that axe is good and razor sharp, you're in trouble. The best way to do it is to put it in the split like this, and then take it and come down with it like this. Alright, just like that. That's the safest way because it's away from your hand. Okay, now, but in reality, like I said, this is not the way it's going to be out in the woods. You're not going to have that. You're going to have something more like this. And this is going to be laying on the ground. Let me ease this down where you can see. You're going to have something like this right here. Alright? And the way you're going to do it is you're going to have something like this. So there's not going to be much of this stuff, and I don't know why people do that. But you take it just like this here, And that'll be the act of splitting. Look, if you're good, you can split it into 4 pieces. So, now let's talk a little bit more. Let me put this back here. Oh, and let's ease this up. Let's talk a little bit about axes and different axes and things like that. Alright, now, let me reach over here. If you want to take a single bit axe, okay, like one of these, you can have like a length with a small head for what they call a pack axe, or you can have a shorter handle with a bigger head like a hatchet. Okay, see the difference in these two? Now the thing about this is when you come down with an axe or a hatchet and you swing, the blow, the split, the cut is not going to be as precise as if you were batoning. Alright, now some people say, oh, you can baton an axe. Well, if you do, once or twice is okay. But when you come down and cut, now I've mentioned this before and I'll mention it again, the pressure is delivered from the blade upwards to the handle. Alright? These thin walls here, if you beat on the back of an axe and beat it through a log, you'll eventually spread the eye out. Now it takes a while, but I wouldn't do that. Now, if you're like me, I like a split axe, I mean a double bit axe like this for cutting and splitting. And what I do is one side is sharp and one side has a steep angle and one side has a blunt angle, and that's because one is better for chopping and one's better for splitting. Now that's a pretty big axe there. A lot of people won't want to carry one of them. The best way for splitting with it is just to swing down and hope it lands wherever it lands. If you want to go Nessmuck style, these little bitty axes right here, you can't put much power in there. It's a good pack axe, but really this thing, now I've got mine sharpened real blunt on one side and real steep on one side, and that thing right there is more for, one side is for cutting wood and the other is for like digging roots out of the ground, chopping around getting roots out. But you can split with it, it's hard to do. So anyway, that leads us, and this is what all the old frontiersmen used, is axes. They've been around forever, and that's why people are saying that this batoning thing is a YouTube survival forum phenomenon. But I mean, it's a useful method. So batoning whatever, knives, machetes, whatever. So now we're going to finally move on to the knife and machete part of this video. Okay, enough about the axes and the splitting. Getting more into the depths of batoning and the tools used. A lot of people, they'll be like that old saying of like, ooh, I go out in the woods with nothing but a knife. All right. That's another one of those things that's about like an Altoids 10 myth that you can actually survive with the contents of Altoids 10. Yeah, you can survive with just a knife, but why would you want to? I don't. So for me, I always carry, and this leads right along to with my my saying of why I rarely ever baton with a knife. I do baton, but I do it with a machete. Now if you've got some big beefy monster like a parang, okay, a parang can take it. You can baton all day long with. That is your fire making and your shelter making's best friend, especially if you enjoy batoning. And that's another point of batoning. Do you enjoy it? Okay, why do it? Everybody's like a big argument. Okay, well, why would you want to carve a wooden spoon when you can buy one? And you get my point. We do things because we enjoy it. But I'm gonna try to, by the end of this video, hopefully it'll open your eyes that batoning is a useful tool. Okay. Now the majority of my machetes, I have a knife attached to all of my machetes. Okay. Always have, always will. Down here, here's a selection of some more machetes. Let's ease down here and take a look. As you can see, the majority of all my machetes do have, move this around so I can see what I'm doing. Stupid camera. The majority of all of my machetes do have a knife attached to them, so that I am never without a smaller cutting tool. Okay, I always have my knife with me. And then I always have my larger chopping tool, which is also good for batoning. Okay. Now, a lot of people don't do this. The style still hasn't caught on, which I'm shocked, because there's styles that have spread around on YouTube that have caught on. But attaching a knife to a machete has been very slow to catch on. But I love it because you've got you've got everything you need with you. And then of course sometimes you'll have some cordage with you, and then sometimes you'll have a ferro rod with you. Now the only time that I don't have a knife attached to my machete is like whenever I have in this pouch, whenever I have like say a folding saw attached. A folding saw is also necessary when you're going to do a bunch of batoning, especially for shelter building. And I'm going to get into that in a minute too, especially with this old rumor of if a knife is all you have and you have to baton. But whenever I carry a big knife or a machete with a saw, then I always have a neck knife. I like neck knives. So basically, whether I have a saw or not, or whether I have one of these other machetes, I've always got a neck knife with me. So I've always got a small cutting tool, and I've always got a large chopper with me. Okay? So, and most of the time I have a folding saw with me. So, let's move over there where all the wood is piled up, and let's start getting into the nitty-gritty. I have rambled and talked enough. Now I'm going to show you some cool things. Alright, well let's get into another one of the arguments of batoning, okay, and why you should baton a knife. Why or why not, okay? There's that old tried and true myth of, what if a knife is all you have, okay? Now, without attacking anyone personally, this is just my opinion from experience, okay? If you see, let's ease you down here so we can talk about this. Now, if you see someone say the argument, you're going to baton your knife because it's the only thing you have with you, okay? They're going to show this, okay? They're going to set a piece of wood on here, okay? And then they're going to say, well, you should put the knife here, or you should put it here, or you should put it in the middle, or you should start over on the edge, okay? Anytime you see anything like this or this, you know what you're dealing with? You're dealing with someone that is just randomly making a video. Because if they had really gone out with a knife, it wouldn't look like that at all. I can promise you that is not experience showing you something. I'm fixing to show you what it will look like, because you're not going to have a nice solid cut if all you have is a knife. Okay, so that's leaving out details. If you leave out details, then more than likely you haven't done it, because if you've done it, you know how miserable it was and you wouldn't want to do it again. And you're not going to have a nice chopping block. So real quick, I'm going to go over, I'm going to show you what it will look like. And you may not like it. And I wouldn't do it this way either, but if you only had a knife and you were going to baton, this is what it will look like. Okay? Now the way this is going to actually look is you're going to find a big long stick laying on the ground, just like this. Alright? Now if you only had a knife, preferably you're going to find a piece that's dead and dry and got a nice split in it already. And then what you're going to do is you're going to lay it on the ground. Let's find a good spot. How about right here? You're going to lay it on the ground because you don't have a saw and you're not going to saw it. And you're either going to break it between two trees, or you're going to beat like this. And you're going to remove chunks, just like that. Go in at an angle, flip it over, because this is the way it really would be, is if all you had was a knife. And this is not good on a knife. This is abusing a knife. But there's so many people that insist to baton a knife because if it's all you have, well then, sadly enough, this is the way it's going to look. Alright, now, once you got a place started, what you're going to do next is that. And this is what you're going to have. Okay? Now, the way you want to do this, remember, like I said, this is all you have is a knife. And they talk about beating the knife through. You're going to find the crack, and you're going to start your knife in the crack, so that you don't give it a bunch of abuse. And you want to go all the way back to the thickest part of the blade and give it a tap. And that's it. Okay, because you're not going to be batoning huge wood because you just hacked your way through the wood. Instead of beating it the whole way through, if it has a natural split, you give it a pop, just like that. Okay, same thing with that every time. Start the knife and give it a split. Okay, and it doesn't always split down the middle, but this will be good for your needs, which is okay because you can just put it back through the other end. Depending on the wood grain, it may split the whole way. You may be lucky and it'll split the whole way like this. Alright, so didn't mean to offend anybody or make anybody mad, but I mean, that's the reality. You can't take a piece that's been sawed with a saw and flat and put it on a chopping block and say, ooh, this is how you baton if all you have is a knife. That ain't all you had. You had a folding saw. So anyway, and that also leads back to why you would have such a thin piece, because I can promise you, you are not going to beat your knife through a big thick piece of wood like this. It's not going to happen. If it's dry enough, you may break it between trees or jump up and down on it. But something that thick, I ain't batoning a knife through it. Absolutely not. No way. That's what machetes are made for. Okay? So, moving right along. Now, before we move on to the larger choppers, this is kind of a word of warning that I want to show you about, okay, with batoning with a knife, okay, now, because this has happened a million times. All right, now, let's say you have a piece of wood. Look at this piece of wood, examine it carefully, okay. Now, what am I going to do? I'm going to take my knife, and it's out of camera, out of camera focus. All right, you can see the bottom of this. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this piece of wood, okay, you see where my hand is? And I'm going to set my knife up on top. See how far away my hand is? Not a big deal, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this. I'm going to beat this all the way through. Okay? That's what you see a lot of people do. All right? Now, a lot of people use Emberlits, Swiss volcano stoves, those nano stoves. I think there's one called a Bush Buddy. The little stoves that use twigs, okay? Twigs are great to feed them in, but sometimes you want smaller pieces with sharp edges on them because they just catch flame so much better. So this is the word of warning, okay? If you have a bunch of pieces, let's say that you have a bunch of bunch of short pieces here, okay? Some of you may have experienced this, but if you have a bunch of short pieces, possibly even shorter than this, and you're like, I'm going to make a bunch of these short pieces for my stove, okay? So, you're going to take this, and you're going to set it here. See how I'm doing? Now see how much closer my hand is to it? And then you're going to baton this, okay? Alright, now, let's say you've done this numerous times. When you have a massive stack of these things, and you're flying through them, it's just a matter of time before, as you're doing this, it's a matter of time before your hand comes up and touches this blade. I've done it at least 10 times. And it gets even worse when you're getting real short things because your hand is so close to the blade. The actual act of batoning won't cut you, but lifting your hand away from it will. So please, always, always, always remember that. When you're batoning these little short pieces for your stove, always remember that. I've been cut at least 10 times doing that. The worst cuts I've ever had have been batoning little bitty pieces for my Swiss volcano stove or for my Emberlit. So that might be all about batoning with a knife. So now let's move on to batoning with a machete, which is my preference. It's what I do. I don't really like doing this that often, okay? But like I said, that was one of the instances where I do, because think about it. If I've got my Emberlit, am I going to be batoning this with a machete? No, more than likely I'll get my knife out and do it. Okay, so let's move on along to the next part of the video. Now there is yet another use for batoning, and Some people may have seen this in my past videos, but I'm going to cover this again, you know, just for the simple fact of the difference between a machete and an axe in this case, and why batoning is useful for things other than not just a fire. Okay, now, but you need to have a folding saw. Alright, let's see. I can't remember which is which. Let's see, my favorite saws are the Silky Boy 240s. This is a medium tooth, this is a large tooth. Okay. Now for shelter building, what you want to do is sometimes when you're building a bed or a shelter or whatever, you can just lash two logs together. That's fine and dandy, but I don't care how tight your lashings are. It's not as secure as if you were doing notches. So what I'm going to do, cut down into that one, and then let's cut down into this one. Now this is what's called either partial batoning or end batoning. And all you do with that is you line the wood up, okay? Find my baton. You're going to line the wood up and split down to that. Now the whole thing about that I wanted to show is because everybody's like, if you're going to baton or split, why don't you just carry an axe? Well, the thing is, if you've got an axe and when you come down, you may or may not hit the right spot. But when you're doing this, you're almost guaranteed a precise cut. Okay, so yet another reason for batoning and or a reason for carrying a machete. Okay, now there's one other method, because if you tie that together for like a bed frame or part of a shelter, it ain't gonna come apart. Okay, and it'll probably take less cordage. There's a lot of other notches. If you look back through my old video list, there's a bunch of things I've done with no cordage, and there's different knots and things, and there'll be more in the future. Now one other thing I'm going to show you real quick is yet another joint which they think is abusing a machete, but I don't think it is. Now if you'll note, when you first start your saw cut, you want your hand as far away, and once you've got the blade started to where it won't jump out, then you can move your hand closer. Now this is another deal right here, that it only works with certain machetes. You hold the machete in at an angle like this, and where you first sawed, you want it as close to it as you can be. Because you're not necessarily beating straight down, you're beating at an angle. Okay? Okay? Now there's certain shelter joints that this comes in handy. Okay? You lash that thing together, and that's a jewel of a joint. Alright, so now let's move on to the next part of the video. So let's talk about this in relation to fire starting now. Okay? Say you have a typical piece of wood, okay, and you want to get a fire started. Okay, I'm going to put a rubber band over the bottom of it. Just like that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some batoning. Beat that in and give it a crack. Pull my blade out. Just beat it again and again. Now, I'm going to beat down to the rubber band because it gets to the point to where it's not easy to do, and I'm going to grab behind my blade and give it a split. Okay? Now my rubber band is about broken, so I can't do that again, but I'm going to go ahead and try to baton it one more time. And it's probably going to explode this time. Alright, now what you have just seen is I have just exploded this thing into, see if I can pick them all up. There's sticks laying everywhere. I think that might be one of them. Now see what I've just done then with that rubber band. I think I got all of them, unless that's one of them. I think that was 1, 3, 6, 7. I don't know. Maybe one of them don't belong. I don't know. All right, there's 6 pieces right there. So that is a good method for the old fire starting. Okay, now let's move on to why you would want to use this for a fire over a bunch of twigs. Now they say that you're going to do this just when everything's wet and you want to get to the center of the wood, but I'm going to explain why you would want to use this, okay, over just picking up twigs on the ground. All right, now let's talk about something else here. It's called flame working time, okay? Now let's say that I like things in nature that are light and fluffy, like grass and cattail tops and thistle tops. So, because what I'm going to do is this is guaranteed to either take a spark, well, it's guaranteed to take a flame, and there's a possibility that it may take a flame. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pile me up a bunch of this right here, okay, because this is nice and dry, and this is going to take a spark. All right, we love our fluffy tinder. Now when you're counting, I don't know, maybe 10 seconds, rough it over, you got a little bit more time, you're moving this stuff around. Now how much time do I have to work with my tinder? Okay, I say I wasn't turning that around much, okay, but you get the basic idea now. Okay, that's a pile of cattail fluff right there. All right, so you're going to be working it with one hand, and then you're going to be piling wood on it with the other. Okay, let's say that I'm the idiot that did all the batoning. I've got a bunch of batoned wood here, okay? It's got nice razor sharp edges. All right, so let's see. I've never batoned in my life. I just pick up little twigs off the forest floor. Okay, well, let's just pick up twigs off the forest floor. Okay, well, I'm gonna have a relative pile of this. Real thin stuff. You're not, so that nobody's gonna be accusing me of saying, oh, you've gotten, the diameter's a lot bigger. So I'm just breaking the ends off of these things. See, this is pretty big stuff, and it's all got bark on it, so I'm not going to pick off of that no more. I have another one right here that I have picked up off the ground. So let's break into this a little bit. And I'm going to have me a nice pile of them. Now it's starting to get a little bit big diameter, so I'm going to toss that to the side. All right, let's grab yet another one. See, I'm grabbing just the very thin stuff, and this is nice and dry. It wasn't laying directly on the ground. So and we're starting a fire. Okay, so now I think I have, I'll get a couple more here. I think I have more here. I think I have a pile. Okay, now I have picked this up now. It's got the bark on it. These are just twigs. I didn't have to do anything to it because all I've got's my ferro rod. Okay, now this other guy brought a knife or a machete and he batoned wood. Okay, so now let's take a look at the difference between the two here. I'm going to lay these right here in camera angle. Now let's get some more fluff right here. Okay, let's get this light fluffy stuff right here. Now this is going to be, let's see if we can start a fire with this. Okay, now this is my flame working time. Okay, remember that term. Better move these. I got some matches for just in case I need them. Okay, but I'm on the set of a Discovery Channel show, and I only have one match. Right. And I gotta quit trashing the Discovery Channel. Anyway, that was just a random thought. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to have a piece of wood nearby so that I can work the tinder. Okay, but I'm going to be guaranteed to get a flame because I have a ferro rod and I have fluffy tinder. So what I'm going to do is with one hand, constantly flipping it over trying to keep a flame. With the other hand, I'm going to be putting on the twigs. So let's see what this does. Alright. Now see, it worked up so fast that I couldn't even do anything with it. Okay, let's try it again. And there you go. See, I can't even work it up fast enough. Okay, they're going quick. Okay, I'm not even fast enough to put anything on it. Okay, so let's ditch that idea. Let's move all this fluffy stuff over. Okay, a let's try a thistle head. Okay, here's some thistle heads. Let's try one of these. Okay. We'll move all this fluff out of the way. So cattails sometimes ain't always what they're made out to be. Is this in camera? Yeah, that's in camera angle. Alright, so we're going to strike this and then turn it over. And it's gone, just like that. See, this stuff just... If you work it over, up, down, what do you know? No success. All I've gotten out of that is I'm nice and sweaty and no success. So, now let's go to a feather stick. I think I have proven my point with this stuff, okay? This stuff, yes, it takes a spark and it flames up super fast. The lightest, fluffiest stuff is just fantastic. But you saw, that is called flame working time. You've got to have time to work over your flame. You're turning your spark into a flame, but you got to have time to work over your flame, okay? All right, nice dry stuff, okay? Very dry. Now, let's go on to the feather stick or curls. All right, a feather stick or curls. Okay, now I have batoned with my machete, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to break out my knife, and I'm going to attempt. Now, Morris Kohansky is the absolute master of making these feather sticks. He makes curls longer than anybody I've ever seen, and he is so impressive. It's mind-boggling. My curls don't look as good, and it also depends on the wood. I say a lot of times my curls will fall off. So let's make some curls here. Now I don't really like this knife for this. I'll use it for it, but I'm not a big fan of it. Because as I am pushing the blade down, I like to go in an angle. That's a mini bush lower. So let's try the full-size bush lower. Where's it at? Let's try it. A little bit bigger blade. In which it's kind of dull. I should have sharpened all my knives before I did this video. Alright, now I've got some right here. Not a lot of curls. A lot of people suggest that you have more curls than that. Now I'm going to set this to the side. And then let's get another one here. Where's another one? I think this is a good one. That's got a knot in it right here. If you got a knot in it, knots aren't good. Hey, let me try my new knife. I'm trying to make these because I'm going to show you about flame working time. A lot of times if you encounter a knot, you want to move on to a different piece of wood. And I'm stopping at the knot. And I'm starting to lose a few of the curls. Now, I have a problem with getting the curls the same. Let's just call that an equal amount of curls for the sake of this video, because I don't want too many curls. And remember this, the more the curls you have, the longer your flame working time. So, let's go back over to the twigs and the batoned pieces. I'm going to give these twigs the benefit of the doubt. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give them what I feel like is more curls than the less curls. Okay, so let's take these curls here. Alright. Now this will probably make an idiot out of me. Almost had it in a minute there. I think I see it blowing. Nope. Let's go over here on the end of it to where the curls are thinner. There we go, finally. Okay, now I have a flame. Okay, flame working time. Okay, now the harder it is to catch on fire, the longer it takes. Alright. Now I'm putting all these twigs on. And now this flame has to permeate that outer bark. Okay, now if I had a huge feather stick, I would have more success. Now I'm putting the smallest on here. Dang, I wasn't even in camera shot. Now I'm putting the smallest on here that I can. Okay, now these are twigs. I don't baton. So these are the twigs that I have picked up. Now can you see how weak of a flame I've got right there? Now I've got some flame finally catching over here, so I'm going to move over here. And I'm going to put some near it. And it just went out. Now I got a little bit of flame. Now I'm going to blow on it. Alright. I am not successful with fire. Okay. So now let's take a look at this other guy. Let's move his stuff out of the way that I have picked up off the forest floor. Okay. There was one that it barely permeated the bark. So let's move his stuff over to the side. Alright. Okay. That didn't work. How many times has that happened to you? So let's take this. Alright. I now have my batoned wood. Let's see how these sharp edges with no bark catch on them. And these are even a lot bigger pieces of wood. Alright, so let's see. And I have less curls here to work with. So let's try this. Nothing yet. Flip this over. I'm trying to get it onto one of the thinnest portions. And this is where quality of feather sticks comes in handy. You got to have the thinner feathers. Okay, there it goes. I finally have a flame. So what I'm going to do now is I'm putting my wood on here, and I'm leaning all these razor sharp edges up against it. Razor sharp edges catching this flame. So now I'm not going to blow on this. I'm not going to try to cheat. I'm just laying these big pieces of wood on there. Let's see what it does. Okay, now I'm going to blow on it. Well, neither one worked. Man, I'm sweating like a pig. This Georgia humidity's killing me. Anyway, now a lot of you may be thinking, why would you show that? Why would you show that? Why would you take forever to light with a ferro rod, and then why would you put sticks on and have them go out? Okay, well, sometimes it works, sometimes it don't, but I'm going to leave it in there because the simple fact that the twigs didn't work either. But when I pick the twigs up off the ground, there's nothing I can do. Okay, if I fail with the batoning method, there is something I can do. I still have all my stuff. You can see where the edges started catching on fire. What I can do is I can go back to the drawing board here, and what I can do is I can baton some more. I can baton these into even smaller pieces, and that's what I'm going to do. Okay, I'm going to baton these down into little bitty tiny pieces, so that actually I'm going to have more working time. Now this is another method to where you can say to yourself to be sure and process some of it down as small as you can. Now I don't know how this just happened. Somehow or another I managed to get this stuck into that split. So let's process this on down just a little bit and get all these small pieces. I'm losing some of them because I'm getting them so small. But real small pieces like this, and I'm pretty sure I'll be successful with even just the littlest of flames. Alright, now like I said, I'm trying to make a point here. When you have a pile of twigs, if they don't work, period. If you baton wood and it doesn't work, you can baton it down into smaller pieces, so you still have a chance. Okay, so I'm going to lay this on top over here. Wait a minute, I'm out of camera angle. I'm going to lay all this right here. Okay, I've got that in camera angle. I'm going to put the fire here. Okay, now I made some more small feathers. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, these aren't as long, there's more of them, but they aren't as long. So what I'm going to do now, and see, like I said before, when it wouldn't work, it wouldn't work. Okay, but with this, I still had a piece of wood that I could carve, and then I still had stuff I can baton. So let's see what we can do here. Sometimes it takes multiple strikes because you have to warm up, dry out, and char some of these pieces. There it goes. Alright, so what I'm going to do now, see how razor sharp this is on each end? I'm going to lay it on it, lay it on it, lay it on it. See, razor sharp out on the end. Now see, the flames from my original curls are starting to die down, but I'm putting these small pieces on. Just continuously stack it on here. Now I believe at this point I'm getting very, very close to my flame working time being gone. And the reason I say that, even though there's flames, is because my original curls are now burned up. But as you can see, I haven't had to blow on it any. Now the first time I didn't have success because everything was too big. This is one of the original pieces that was burnt. You see how big it is. So all I had to do was process this down just a little bit smaller, and I now have success. So that was another example right there when I said that I rarely baton with a knife. Yeah, I'll baton with a knife when the wood is very large. But when the time comes to get it down small, then that's when I will baton with my knife to get it a little bit bigger. Now, as you can see, I haven't had to fight with that fire at all. I didn't have to fight with it, you know, to get it going. I didn't have to blow on it. And this is one of the examples. And another thing is it's a relatively smoke-free fire. Okay, there's maybe a little bit of smoke with it. You can see the flames. You can see yourself how this fire has grown. Okay, I see that's a good fire. And I'm going to show you one other thing just for the heck of it, since I got the fire going. I want to put the twigs on and some of this stuff. Now see, that's some flames right there. I'm going to put some of this stuff on that's got the bark, and I want to see if it has some smoke. Right now it is nothing but flames. So let's put some of this on. Now the twigs have the bark on it. Now it's popping and crackling. And that popping and crackling is something that you don't want inside a shelter. People talk about me heating with the shelters, the popping and the crackling, and snapping and shooting sparks everywhere. Now, I may not can pick it up on camera, but I'm seeing a little bit of smoke. There's just a little bit of smoke coming off of that fire now. But it's definitely popping and crackling, which you don't always want. And I think that's one of the reasons why I always got used to batoning wood, is from all the years of heating under a tarp or heating in a shelter, you know, things like that. So I'll let that go for there for a minute. But anyway, I mean, it's easier for me to show you than to tell you, and that's why I'm glad. Well, I'm never happy when a fire doesn't work, but the first batoned fire didn't work. And I think it was good that you saw that, because there's always flame working time. There's tinder, kindling, and fuel. Okay, tinder will take a spark and turn it into flame. Okay, that's tinder. Kindling will take a flame in 60 seconds. If you hold it over a flame, it'll take the flame in 60 seconds. And so there's different sizes that you have batoned. And see, at this point, my flame working time, every bit of that, no, there is no fuel on that fire. Every bit of that was kindling. The kindling gives you some serious flame working time. I could have put fuel over that fire and it'd be a big roaring fire now. So anyway, ain't that neat? Now the things that I say and do on these videos, they're not to attack anyone, they're not to insult anyone, they're to try to educate and show you the things that I've learned. They don't always come out right on film, but hopefully they get the point across, because when you watch me do things, hopefully you'll do these things. Play around with these things, make feather sticks, baton with a machete, carry a machete, you know, just kind of learn from these things. And I like to try to keep it as real as possible, whether it's good or bad or it fails or whatever, you know, it's all that's how you learn. Things don't always work, you know. This isn't TV, you know, where you're running around naked with a loincloth and, you know, well, I'm going to do this. Cut, didn't work, let's try again. Well, I'm going to cut, it didn't work, let's do it again, you know. I'm going to show you when things go bad, how do you recover from them? Just like the fact with the twig fire. If the twigs don't work, what are you going to do? More than likely, you're going to gather up, you're going to cut more curls and have more flame working time, okay? And with the baton wood, if it didn't work out right, baton it down smaller. Debarked razor sharp wood catches flame better than anything, okay? And it was good for you to see the deal with the nice fluffy stuff compared to the curls. If you can strike something real easy with a ferro rod and it takes a first spark, your flame working time is very low. That's something to remember. If it takes a lot to get a flame, then you've got a massive flame working time, okay? So I hope you had fun, hope you learned something, hope you'll get out and practice, and I shall see you in the next one.